Hi, this probably looks a bit different. I'm currently going through some renovations right now, which hopefully means that in the near future, you guys are going to see a more improved version of this video. I know you guys probably are already noticing that my studio cast that's sat behind me is completely missing. Do not worry, they will be back. In the meantime, I've also used the opportunity to experiment with the composition of my videos and some of the lighting and just overall trying to improve the quality of the video. I know it might be hard to believe, but I took 4 years in a broadcast communications program, and part of it was for television and radio. And from the quality of my videos, I completely understand if you guys didn't believe that. That said, hopefully once the renovations are done, you guys will get a new sort of revamped experience, at least quality-wise. Content-wise, you're still gonna get the same garbage, which is good. Back in 2015, I started getting into electronic music a bit more. I don't think I've ever mentioned this story, but I kind of got into electronic music when I was playing Just Dance and a deadmau5 song came on, and I was like, this kind of slaps. That was my first introduction to electronic music. I started really getting into it once I found a GTA drifting comp and the song was from Monster Cat. But before I really got into electronic music, I was really into trap music. And trap music, to be honest, is still my favorite electronic genre. Although by the communities and the people that I surround myself with, it wouldn't really seem like I'm really that much of a trap music fan. People oftentimes see me a lot more enthusiastic and excited for lo-fi music. And at least with the sort of content that I put out and my appearances on labels like Rushdown, I'm a lot more associated to a dubstep or bass producer than I would with trap or lo-fi, like I said. But of the many different word associations that you can make with trap music, one of the big labels back in 2015 when I started following was Elysian Records. Back in the day, you had massive artists carving a piece of the scene out for themselves, and you had the big promotional channels like Trap Nation and Trap City, just killing it video after video. And to be honest, I really wanted to take the opportunity to just marathon something that just wasn't dubstep, but also something that kind of took me back to my roots and my origin as an electronic music fan. And to be honest, the experience was pretty alright. They have about 250 or so songs. I went on their SoundCloud, went all the way to oldest, and I just started listening through it, and it was really nice. I really feel like a big part of my listening experience was clouded by the rose-tinted glasses of nostalgia. That being that every song was great to me. I loved it all. I love trap music. I love the classic 2015 style. And it was actually kind of hard at times to find something that I didn't like about the listening experience that I was partaking, which was a very big breath of fresh air from the marathons I'd done prior, where I was getting really sick of listening to really bad dubstep released in like 2014 to 2016. This was the best part of the listening experience, because from here, I feel like the more I listened and the more I delve deeper into what Elysian Records has become, it has not become a record label that I would consider recognizable from its past, but also did not really have the greatest journey from 2015. So as I mentioned, they kind of started around 2015. I believe they actually started in 2014, but they didn't release that many songs. However, in 2014, they did release Gioni's Trigger, which was a massive song back in the day. And you guys might have even heard this mashup by my buddy Streak, who also got it big because of that song. So big thanks to Gioni. They continued releasing music with a lot of the very large established artists. They had artists like Subatomic, Gioni, Vincent, who was formerly known as XVII, Fabian, Mazur, Thieves, formerly known as Party Thieves, K-Theory, Jinco, MEDASIN, JayKode, and more. And while a lot of the trap music at the time was very much for like festivals, very drawn out, kind of samey, very basic, that was just what I really liked. And I still kind of like it. I'm not afraid to admit it. I'm into some of the worst trap music. That said, as the label started to grow, I think they realized that they wanted to start branching out to other types of trap music. And definitely around the 2016 era was the boom of future bass. I'm going to drop a bit of a hot take. Trap music, at least back in the day, was definitely a lot more of a simpler genre. And so artists were able to put out a lot of songs very quickly. They were able to kind of just keep the same sort of structure, but change it up a bit. And they were able to just go on fine with that. But then with the introduction of future bass was when you really started to notice which artists knew how to produce and which artists were trying to produce and just not doing well. This was one of the first times where, as a label continued to progress and age, the music actually got worse. Normally, and I can say this for almost every single other discography that I've marathoned aside from Subsidia, which I've only marathoned one comp, which was 120 songs. The older the label got, obviously, it was really cool seeing the progression and the evolution of the sound that they signed and the sound that the artists that would come back to the label would come back and grow with. But with Elysian Records, it was almost like you were watching it devolve, because the trap music, it was kind of bad, but you can still slap to it, you could still vibe to it. But the future bass was just really bad. It was almost like 2011, 2012 quality, early dubstep, I guess you could say. But then they tried slapping 808s and trap beats and drums, and it just was not working. If I had to make like a sort of graph of the music that I really liked, I had a lot of music early on which I liked. The middle age, just kind of big dip, and then as the label continued to grow, I got some more of that music where we were finally getting those artists that were like, here's my sound, here's the music that I'm releasing, and it was actually pretty alright. But unfortunately, it really felt like that hype and that momentum that they had gained back in like the 2015, 2016 era, it was just not something that they were able to keep the momentum of, which was really unfortunate, and it got to a point where it started being really annoying and irritating. You see, they had a lot of these artists that they had grown and that had started off on Elysian Records, and as opposed to being able to maintain this core roster of artists that would continue releasing with them, they just kept on finding new artists, which is always great. I love it when artists are able to find a new home and for labels to showcase underground talent. The main issue was when the underground talent was completely outwashing all of the stuff from all the other artists. Because Elysian Records is also the first label that I've ever marathoned where there were more artists that have appeared on the label than songs that I've ever released. And that's definitely saying something when every single song felt like it was from a brand new artist or a brand new collab, because most of these artists just had absolutely no staying power. I'm gonna jump back a bit because I kind of jumped ahead of myself, but the future bass issue that I was mentioning didn't really stop there, because Elysian was still enforcing that they kind of wanted to branch out, and so they started releasing house music, which, well, I guess I could understand that there is some overlap between trap music and house music, seeing as there's oftentimes the house to trap switch up, or you can do halftime trap, or just trap at 128 beats per minute. It was unfortunately not even like they were signing good house either. Some of it was good, most of it I don't think so. And so it got to a point where 2018, 2019, Elysian Records was having an identity crisis. None of the artists felt like Elysian artists because everyone was an Elysian artist. They kind of lost what made them big, which is the trap music. And while a lot of people could probably argue that trap was just a trend or just a fad at the time, it didn't really quite piece together in my mind when you had a lot of these artists that were releasing on Elysian Records moving over to other labels, such as like Bitbird or Monster Cat or even NCS. And it made me feel bad because then you had these artists that were mainstays on the label that were releasing a lot. Artists like Fabian, Mazur, MEMBA, and TWERL. For whatever reason, they decided they wanted to stick to Elysian Records. They had a deal maybe. They were friends with the owner. I don't really know. My only thought was, but you could have released this somewhere else. And then I started feeling very conflicted with myself because as I continued listening into 2020, 2021, they started picking up the releases even more. So much to the point where it was not uncommon for them to release 2 songs a day. And it's not even like 2 songs from the same artist, like a double-sided single or an EP. It was 2 songs by 2 different artists, 2 completely separate releases, but on the same day. So now not only do you have these established artists that had no room to breathe because you were being flooded in by these new artists, they were also had to compete with these artists for slots on the same day. And so my conflict was, these good artists should leave Elysian Records because their releases are not performing as well. There's other labels that are probably more interested in signing them. But then you have these new artists where I'm like, their music isn't that good. And they should not release on Elysian Records and work on their sound before getting on. And at the end of the day, the fault is neither the mainstay artists that have been there since 2015, nor the new artists that are getting signed. It's whoever's running Elysian Records. We get into 2020, 2021, obviously the pandemic is happening. There's a lot of leeway that I can give, especially because, you know, once in a lifetime, hopefully, pandemic that affects the entire world. There's a lot that happens, all right? If you miss a day, you know, there's a mistake. You misspelled the title and haven't fixed it in 2 years. You know, it is what it is. Eventually, the releases really started to die down very quickly. It got very inconsistent, which then brought up another issue, which is that you went from releasing 2 songs a day to not having enough releases to make it to the end of the year. It's some sort of planning problem. I don't really know. By this point, as I was adding music that I enjoyed to my playlist, there was very little music that I was adding. I wasn't enjoying it. I was just trying to get to the end of it Fortunately, I've learned how to listen to music while at work, so I was able to do this while getting paid, which is a much nicer feeling than listening to the entire Roundtable discography in my basement in one 6-hour session and feeling pain and really enjoying it. But alas, I did it. I made it to the end of the Elysian Marathon, 256 songs. I was doing a little bit of research, and then I opened their YouTube channel, and I was a bit confused because I was looking at their YouTube channel and I noticed I don't recognize that song. And that's when I realized, ooh boy, I made a mistake. I scrolled the SoundCloud releases, but only what the label uploaded. And that's when I remembered that sometimes labels, as a form of cross-promotion, will release music not only on the label's page, but also on the artist page. Maybe the artist will release 2 songs on an EP, and the label will release 2 songs on the EP. So I went through every single song. I had to reorder a few songs. I listened through it, got out to about an additional 20 more songs. All right, sounds good. We made it to the end, but I opened up that YouTube channel again. I'm checking the YouTube channel, and once again I see I don't recognize that song. And that's when I realized there are some songs that are not on the SoundCloud page. And that was very strange to me. So I go back, I'm scrolling through the entire YouTube page now, and I'm referencing. I've listened to that song, I've listened to that song, I've listened to that song. I've not listened to this song. And what happened is 2020, 2021, it completely fell apart. Half the songs were just completely missing on SoundCloud and from YouTube. I'm cross-referencing. I'm essentially going through the entire discography for the 3rd time now. I make it through to the YouTube page. We're now at like 300 songs. Okay, that's all right, you know? We made it to the end. I'm writing my notes down. Some of the older releases that Elysian did were collaborations with other record labels. The main 2 being Unborn Records and Magic Records, which both had their own series of releases. But then I clicked on a release and I noticed something very interesting at the bottom of the page. It said S0UND, or Sound Records. I tried searching that up. I could not find anything about it. And this really stumped me for a while. What the heck is Sound Records? I'm asking my friends if they've seen anything like this, if they recognize this record label. Don't recognize it. I thought maybe this was some sort of mistake. The next day, I wake up and I don't know what prompted me. I don't know, some weird rat under my hat was telling me you should go check out the Spotify page. So I check out the Spotify page and Elysian Records has a discography playlist. I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. I click on it. And that's when I see a bunch of these new releases that I've never seen before. And I thought maybe it was a mistake. Maybe they were accidentally adding random tracks, but all these tracks had Sound Records. And that's when I realized the beginning is not an S. It was a 5. It's 50 UND Records. I search it up. Lo and behold, there's a SoundCloud page. There's a YouTube page. 50 UND Records. And I was really confused because all these pages don't have descriptions. And all of these pages also don't have the entire discographies. So I'm going through the Spotify playlist. I'm really confused. Why do they have 50 UND records? And I don't know, again, what prompted me. I went back to the YouTube page because I was also doing research. As most of y'all maybe don't know, there's a community section where you can make posts. And for example, I have one, and I used to post animal pics every week, and then I didn't for like 2 years. I clicked on the community page for Elysian Records. Hey guys, this year we're planning on releasing more music. We're planning on releasing a mix every single week, and we've released a new sub-label called 50 UND Records. Damn! So here we go again. I'm going through the entire Spotify playlist. We're going through the discography for the 5th, 6th time at this point, and this was the point where I realized at some point Elysian Records, they just... I felt really bad. It really kind of sucked, because I was really looking forward to marathoning Elysian Records, this beacon of what I was into when I was literally still not an adult yet. And I don't know if the person who owns Elysian Records is still the owner from like back then, if it's a one-man team. I don't really know what's going on, because at some point something went very wrong. The whole thing just kind of fell apart. I'm going through this sub-label and I don't like any of the songs. They all just kind of disappoint me. There's one song. I think I liked 1, maybe 2 songs from the 50 additional songs from that side label. And it kind of just sucked. It was just kind of a very disappointing experience to have. This label that I once considered in such high regard as being what made me enjoy trap music, what got me into trap music, what went wrong? I want to go back to what I mentioned earlier. I was doing research, obviously, for this project. I was trying to, get the bio going, see what's going on. All of the social media sites, they just kind of died. The Twitter page never gets updated unless they have a big release, which I think really says a lot about how they only prioritize promoting releases when it's their big ones, which also had me very confused as to how they managed to get artists like TroyBoi and Jules to release on Elysian Records and then managed to maintain none of the viewers or fans that might have discovered this record label. But I guess what I'm trying to get at is that this whole listening session was just one stumble after another stumble after another stumble after another stumble. I was talking to one of my buddies about this, and what it literally felt like was that the label was just on this downhill decline. And right when we thought it couldn't get any worse, they said, you know how we could save it? Let's have another kid. Let's just release another record label. And now this sub-record label, not even the main one, they're getting new artists and releasing them on this sub-label, which they've done absolutely no promotion except for that one YouTube post that I found. And they're getting like 40 plays. As much as I don't enjoy the music, it really just feels like they're just signing music for the heck of it. And it's really confusing when it makes me think, well, like, what could have been the motivation? And I went onto their Instagram page and I saw that they did a collaborative post. They were announcing a new collaboration with some company named Nitrality. I click on them because I'm like, I wonder what this is. Maybe this is some sort of revamp. I click on it, and Nitrality is a company that allows you to acquire and trade and sell IP using the metaverse, providing the ability to communicate, reach individuals around the world without proper enforcement of intellectual property, using the utilization of an online marketplace. Elysian. I sent you like 2-3 emails, never got back to me, completely understand. I just want a heart-to-heart. Did you sell your discography to some crypto IP site? Is that what's going on here? Because I also noticed that you guys used to have free downloads. And while I don't want to send criticism or hate in any sort of regard for suddenly paywalling music, obviously, artists deserve to be credited and compensated for the artwork they make. But now I'm wondering, did they remove all that music and now they're planning on selling it through this third-party IP, metaverse, universe, URL, crypto, whatever? Is that what's going on? Was that the big shebang? Are you like, was that a mistake? Is that why you made a sub-label? So that you don't have to sell it? I don't know. I'm just speculating. But that was kind of the nail on the coffin. I even want to just clarify quickly. I'm not even like inherently anti-crypto, anti-NFT or anything like that. But it's just sort of like, why? And normally I don't actually reach out to the labels that I'm about to make a video on because I'm not planning on making some sort of hit piece or criticism. Usually, I mean, even the labels that I didn't enjoy that much, I would oftentimes leave in a rather okay to high regard. But for this one, I actually specifically, like I said, reached out to Elysian Records and sent out a few emails because I wanted to ask some questions. I wanted to be like, hey, why? 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 They never got back to me. I frankly didn't expect a reply because I never get replies. But yeah, I'm going through this whole thing and I'm thinking, all right, you know what? I made it to the end. No, I didn't, because there was one more song I missed. And the reason I left it for last is more of just like a funny aside, is that, you'd think like, this is going bad, we should release a sister label or sub-label. Elysian Records had 2 sub-labels. The second one was Sound Records. The first one was actually Elysian Latin. And I just thought it was really funny that they would make a sub-label for, I guess, Spanish-themed or Latin-themed trap music, especially when they have a track specifically released as Latino Men that released on the main label. Nice one, Elysian. The actual Elysian Latin release was titled Por qué te vas, which I believe translates to Why are you going? Roughly, rough translation. But yeah, I finally finished marathoning the whole thing. Before I get into the stats of the label, because I still did that, although it is a bit different as opposed to what I normally do. But before I get into that, I guess I should slide in, would I recommend listeners or music fans to do what I did and marathon Elysian Records? And my answer, unfortunately, is no. I would not. And the reason for that isn't even because I disliked a good portion of the music that they've released or because of my own personal distaste and experience when I was marathoning the record label, but it's mainly because the record label has absolutely put in no effort in making it actually easy and consumable to listen to all their music. Frankly, I don't even trust myself to have listened to every single Elysian Records song. I feel like it's very plausible that there are songs that I may have missed. And the reason I know that is because there were songs in the discography playlist that at one point was released on Elysian Records, but are no longer released on Elysian Records. And I don't know if that's just because they forgot. And it's also unfortunate because it's actually a song I kind of liked. I don't actually remember the name of the song, but I'm just going to put like the name and the album cover here. It was re-released on Sony Music. So honestly, that's probably the biggest dub of the video so far. But yeah, similar to my other music marathon videos that I've done, I did make a playlist of my favorite music. So if you still wanted to find the tracks that I considered, you know, golden nuggets within the rough, and it was pretty rough, you guys can definitely go down into the description below to check for a playlist where you guys can listen to my favorite music and maybe find some stuff that you can consider as playlist ads. I think one of the interesting things is seeing how many artists have released on Elysian Records and being like, oh, I know that artist. I recognize that artist. They've released on this label now or on that label now. I'm going to cut the recording right here just so then I can go back to my computer and do the stats summaries that I like to do, which I know some of y'all also like to do. So I'm just going to cut the video right now. Fun little fact, I recorded that video segment like 4 months ago, and I do think it's kind of telling and funny that 4 months later, these statistics that I've written are completely still relevant. Nothing is out of date. Anyways, we're going to put that aside. Let's start with the fun one. The entire Elysian Records discography, and I'm including, by the way, Elysian Records and Sound Records and Elysian Latin Records together, so it's all going to be one bunch of stats, account for 346 songs with a runtime of 18 hours, 21 minutes, and 59 seconds. As I mentioned earlier on in the video, however, this is the first record label that actually had more artists feature on the label than the number of songs that were put out entirely. That being a total of 377 artists. I think something that is unique with this label is that despite having so many artists, I guess that one of the symptoms of having essentially no staying power is that once these artists released one song, they're gone. They're not making a comeback. And for that reason, this label, despite having 300 plus songs, only has 4 EPs. 5 if you can include remix EPs. There are a couple double singles here and there, but generally I don't really count them into the EPs. I did mention that Elysian Records has collaborated with other record labels, that being Unborn and Magic. Elysian has 2 cross-collaborative records with Unborn Records and a total of 8 records with Magic Records. Once again revisiting the earlier stat, however, I still am completely blown away by how so many artists have appeared on the label and so little of them have any staying power. Of the almost 400 artists that have featured on Elysian, only 196 to be exact, had 2 tracks or more, 2 unique tracks. And of course, the higher you go, the even smaller pool of artists there are. If we're only counting artists with 5 or more unique tracks, you come down to 14 artists, leaving only 3 artists with more than 10 tracks on the label, going to NOIXES or NOIXES, Fabian, Mazur, and 2 Souls. There's a question that I have thought in my head where I've thought to myself, what is an Elysian artist? There's a lot of discussion about stuff like that, mainly about how, you know, once you release on a label a certain number of times, you start getting referred to the artist of that label, such as if you are a Monster Cat artist or a Disciple artist. At least with Disciple, it makes a bit more sense because they sign artists. You can be an artist that frequents Disciple, but then there's also artists that are signed to Disciple. There's Bitbird artists, NCS artists. But when I think of an Elysian artist, it's really hard for me to decide what is an Elysian artist with how frequently artists come in and then leave as they came. If I had to assign the title of the quintessential Elysian artist, I do believe it would have to go to Fabian Mazur. Not only is he the artist that has been on the label the longest, dating all the way back to 2015, which is insane, but that even after with his continued success on and off the label, that he continued to release on Elysian Records, essentially until Elysian collapsed in on itself. I feel like if Elysian was still a functioning label, despite all of my biggest critiques on the label, Fabian Mazur probably would keep on releasing. Now we see him frequenting more on Bitbird, and to be honest, I would love to see him eventually release on Monster Cat. The last thing I'll say regarding remixes, VIPs, and albums is that there is no competition. I'm just going to show all the artists that have released a remix and album. And yeah, I guess that's all for my stats. Hope you guys enjoyed that. And back to 4 months ago me. And welcome back. All in all, this was an experience. This was one of the experiences of all time. I cannot lie about that. I've mentioned this in a previous video. I'm currently working on a Megarex marathon. Currently, that's been a bit on hold, and that's because I went on my trip to Japan, which I am working on that vlog video. I've seen people asking. It's coming soon. But also because the people who have been helping me helped me completely, for the most part, through Spotify, and I really don't like using Spotify. So it's been a bit difficult on my boomer brain that only likes using YouTube and SoundCloud to figure out Spotify, and I don't like Spotify. But we're getting through it. We're getting through it. You can teach old dogs new tricks. Am I old? I'm 20. I'm 24? I'm 24. Like if you're 24. But yeah, to be honest, I still am happy that I marathoned Elysian Records. It allowed me to scratch that trap itch that I was really missing, having listened to like purely dubstep and not trap music for so long. So in that regard, I really enjoyed the nostalgia trip that I was able to make. That said, because I know there's a lot of people that have probably never heard of Elysian Records or that are even into trap music, it would not surprise me if somebody wanted to do what I did and listen to every Elysian track if they just straight up didn't like it. Because like I said, I started off the marathon with rose-tinted glasses. And so if I can only imagine somebody who's never heard of any of these tracks listening to Elysian Records and just not liking even less songs than I did. But yeah, I'm going to leave the video there. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. As always, join my Discord, subscribe, follow my Twitter. Don't follow my Twitter. Follow my Instagram. Become a YouTube member. That's something I haven't said in a while. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Recommend something that I should do. I don't know. I'm working away. I have a 9 to 5. I don't have much time, but I'm doing my best. I'm doing my best. And yeah, that was pretty tiring, but it was unique. I think this is one of the most unique music marathon videos I've done. I'm going now. Bye.